Jnananivarandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Vidati Swabharanti Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagra Chatam Sahagana Ragana Tanvitam Tang Sajivam Asadvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Rangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Banchakapachu Vischa Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet Nasta Presho Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavad Utama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Today, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter number 25, Descriptions of the Activities of King Puranjana, who is a fictional character, but an allegorical character representing none other than our very selves, the conditioned souls, and our journey of entanglement and suffering. So it's very sobering and enlightening subject matter. Today we're looking at text 52. Asuri nama paschadvas
Asuri nama paschadvas
Sayayati Puranjanaha
Ayayati Puranjanaha
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Nurmadena Samanvitaha
Ramadena Samagitaha
Asuri Nama Paschadvas
Asuri Nama paschadvas
Sayayati Puranjanaha
Ayayati Puranjanaha
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Nurmadena Samanvitaha
Ramadena Samagitaha
Asuri Nama Paschadvas
Asuri Nama paschadvas
Sayayati Puranjanaha
Ayayati Puranjanaha
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Nurmadena Samanvitaha
Ramadena Samagitaha Asuri Nama paschadvas
Asuri Nama Paschadvas
Ayayati Puranjanaha
Sayayati Puranjanaha
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Ramakam Nama Vishayam
Durmadena Samanditaha
Nurmadena Samanvitaha
Asuri Nama Paschadvas
Asuri Nama Paschadvas
Ayayati Puranjana
Taya yati puranjanaha.
Ramakam nama Vishayam.
Gramakam nama vishayam.
Dharmadena samavita.
Durmadena samanvitaha. Asuri nama paschadvas. Taya yati puranjanaha. Gramakam nama vishayam. Durmadena samanvitaha. These synonyms, please repeat. Asuri.
Asuri.
Of the name Asuri.
Of the name Asuri.
Nama.
Nama.
Called.
Called.
Paschat.
Paschat.
On the western side.
On the western side.
Vaha.
Vaha.
Gate.
Gate.
Taya.
Taya.
By which.
By which.
Yati.
Yati.
Used to go.
Used to go.
Puranjanaha.
Puranjana.
King Puranjana.
King Puranjana.
Gramakam.
Gramakam.
Of the name Gramaka.
Of the name Gramaka.
Nama.
Nama.
Called.
Called.
Vishayam.
Vishayam.
The city of sense enjoyment.
City of sense enjoyment.
Durmadena.
Durmadena.
By Durmada.
By Durmada.
Samanvitaha.
Samanvitaha.
Accompanied. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. On the western side was a gate named Asuri. Through that gate, King Puranjana used to go to the city of Gramaka, accompanied by his friend Durmada. Almost sounds like something from Lord of the Rings, but it's not. This is Lord of the Rings may have taken some concepts and ideas from the Vedas, but this is Narada Muni speaking transcendental knowledge, and this is very much an allegory. So please repeat. On the western side, was a gate named Asuri. Through that gate, King Puranjana used to go to the city of Gramaka, accompanied by his friend Durmada. Purported by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And we would have no idea what was being discussed unless Prabhupada gives this purport. The gate on the western side of the city was known as Asuri because it was especially meant for the Asuras. The word Asura refers to those who are interested in sense gratification, specifically in sex life, to which they are overly attracted. Thus, Puranjana, the living entity, enjoys himself to his greatest satisfaction by means of the genitals. He used to go to the place known as Gramaka. Material sense gratification is also called Gramya. And the place where sex life is indulged in to a great extent is called Gramaka. When going to Gramaka, Puranjana used to be accompanied by his friend Durmada. The word Vishaya refers to the four bodily necessities of life: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The word Durmadena may be analyzed in this way. Dur means dushta, or sinful, and mada means madness. Every living entity who is in contact with material nature is called mada. And it is said, Pisha chachi paile, yena mati chonahoy, Maya grasta jivera hoy se bhava udai. That's from the Prema Vibharta by Jagadananda Pandit, an associate of Lord Chaitanya. When a person is haunted, he becomes practically insane. When one is in an insane condition, he speaks all kinds of nonsense. Thus, to become engaged in sense gratification, one has to accept a friend who is Durmada, or badly affected by the material disease. The words Asurinama Paschadva are significant in another sense. The sunrise is first visible from the eastern side, the Bay of Bengal. and gradually progresses toward the West. It is practically experienced that people in the West are more addicted to sense gratification. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has certified Paschimera Loka Shabam Hudha Anachar from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 10, verse 89. The more one goes to the Western side, the more he will find people disinterested in spiritual life. He will find them behaving against the Vedic standards. Because of this, people living in the West are more addicted to sense gratification. In this Bhagavatam, it is confirmed, Asuri Nama Pascha Dvaha. In other words, the population on the Western side is interested in an Asuric civilization. That is a materialistic way of life. Lord Chaitanya consequently wanted this Krishna consciousness movement to be preached on the Western side of the world so that people addicted to sense gratification might be benefited by his teachings. Asuri nama paschadvas tayayati paranjanaha gramakam nama vishayam ramadhena samanvitaha. On the western side was a gate named Asuri. Through that gate, King Paranjana used to go to the city of Gramaka, accompanied by his friend Dhirodatta. Mukum karoti vachalam, ongam lam gayate girim ajat kripa tamaham bande, sigunam diratarinum. Prabhupada mentions this word Dur. His friend Dhirodatta, a sinful friend, not a very good guy. He says, Dur, what does it say here? Dhirodatta, the friend who's infected by the material disease. So, like that, from a poem by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Dushtamana. It's coming from the word dur, dushta. Dushtamana, oh wicked mind. Tumi Kishara Vaishnava. What kind of Vaishnava are you? Simply for cheap adoration from the public, name, fame, adoration, and distinction, you are engaged in bhajan in a solitary place. But really, because you're dushtamana, you're the servant of your wicked mind, really you're just interested in sense gratification, in money and women. That's what he says. Chastising those who think that by going to a solitary place to do bhajan, they will get some reputation. Oh, he's doing bhajan in a solitary place. Oh, I'm just going to my room to chant my rounds. But everyone will not be thinking, oh, he's chanting his rounds in his room. Everyone is thinking, why? What is he going to his room? He's just sleeping. So, therefore, it is not advisable to try that. That was the purport of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. It is a warning. He says, simply you're trying to imitate Haridas Thakur, who would chant 172 rounds a day in his cave doing solitary bhajan, or in his at the Siddha Bakul in Jagannath Puri. He's chanting 172 rounds a day. Well, that's Haridas Thakur. So do not imitate a great devotee just to try to get some pratishtha that, yes, I'm a great devotee too. Do you not see? Do you not see that I am a great devotee? I am chanting my rounds in my room. Do you not know? Why are you in so much ignorance about these things? So, dushtamana, very nicely put by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So, to those of us who has taken birth in the western part of the world, this is not the most flattering purport that you could imagine, because it is said that the farther west you go, the more asuric the civilization is. Oops, that's our civilization. And the more people are addicted to sense gratification. Oops, That's our culture. So it is not exactly a flattering proclamation here by Srila Prabhupada. But the wonderful thing is that he says, Lord Chaitanya was interested in preaching in the West to deliver the people from the Asuric cultures, which is our culture, which now that culture is spread all over the world, the Western culture, the culture of working hard for sex life, for sense gratification. I'm thinking of my dentist just recently. The dentist, he's got one hand in your mouth and the other hand in your back pocket. In this case, the back pocket was the insurance company. But he's milking it as hard as he can, and he's got 4 kids and, really nice house up in the foothills and a swimming pool and a really nice car. And he's working his butt off as hard as he can to make as much money as he can. And in this way, he's become a mudha. What does mudha mean? Who knows? Yeah, it also means ass. Yeah. Who's carrying the load of the washerman, or in India, I've seen them carrying bricks for construction. The ass has a thing over his back, kind of like a pack. On either side, there's a load of bricks. Bricks are kind of heavy. So hard and there's a stick in front of his, tied to his head, and then there's a carrot hanging off the stick, and he's going for the carrot, which he may get at the end of the day, and then he's allowed to eat a little grass. Well, the grass is growing everywhere by the side of the road. Why is he working so hard? Because he's an ass. So there's a very nice verse in the first canto of the Bhagavatam that explains a little bit about this. Swavidvara hostra karai samstuta parasha pashu. Pashu means animal. Nayat karna patopeto jatu namagadagrajaha. That men who are like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, they never listen to the pastimes or the glorification of the Supreme Lord. Jatu nama gadagrajaha. Gadagrajaha means the holder of the club. Krishna, he holds the club. He has 4 symbols of Vishnu, 2 of which are weapons, the club and the chakra. So he's got the club, he's got the chakra, and what are those for? Chastising the demons. But he also has the lotus flower, and what's the other one? The conch shell, yeah. The conch shell, forgiving benediction, the lotus flower, touch your head. I believe in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, when Dhruva achieved the darshan of Lord Vishnu, first he's meditating on the Lord, he's chanting his mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that was given to him by his spiritual master, Narada Muni, who was also instructing us here in the complexities and perplexities of the living entity. Narada Muni is a great spiritual master, very important speaker of Bhagavat philosophy. And so he's in his meditation, he's actually seeing the Lord in his heart. Oh, wow, that is so fantastic. I'm getting the darshan. It's a beautiful Lord. He's appearing in my heart of hearts. And then suddenly he disappeared. Oh no. And he opened his eyes, and there's the Lord right in front of him. He's not in his meditation anymore. He's like standing right in front of him. Wow. And when he saw the form of the Lord, he was so stunned in ecstasy that generally when one sees the Lord or gets the darshan of the Lord, one should offer prayers, right? He couldn't even offer prayers. He was just he was dumbfounded by that darshan. I mean, we see the deity on the altar, we think the deity is very beautiful. What if the deity walked off the altar and said, "Hey, you, Jesse"? You'd be like, "Who, me? What do you do? What do you say?" It's like, whew, this is a real thing. It's not an imagination. Wow, this Krishna consciousness is real. Krishna is really God. Oh no, heck. I was just hedging my bets just in case. You never know. Time of death, what's going to happen? I hope you did the right thing, just in case, right? But no, this is the reality. And Dhruva Maharaj sees the Lord in front of him. He was stuck. He was just overwhelmed. Shell on his head. Isn't that so cool? He touched him on the head. Ding! And immediately he started offering prayers. He got the mercy. He got the Shakti. So, the Lord had to give him a little jolt to get him started, jumpstart him. And he began to offer his prayers to the Lord. So the conch shell and the lotus flower are meant for the benediction of the devotees in the club. Kadagrajaha, the holder of the club, and the chakra are meant for the chastisement of the non-devotees. So, in terms of this Sanskrit word Gadagraja, there's a joke, and that goes, where does God keep his car? In the Gadagraja. Get it? God's garage. There's a devotee that sometimes is in Alachua, sometimes in his name is Gadagraja. He's quite a character, this fellow. The idea is that, according to this verse we're hearing from the first canto, Svavidvara hostar karai, samstata parasha pashu, that human beings should not be animals like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, who never listen to the glorification of Gadagraja, the holder of the club, but rather to be a human being. The difference between the human being and the animal is the human being uses his facility, his human facility, his God-given intelligence, his special circumstances for the spirit soul to have the human body in the proper way, which is to hear and chant about Krishna and engage oneself in devotional service and make real progress as a spirit soul, and not just to waste it for sense gratification, which is what human society, generally speaking, is engaged in. Certainly in the Western civilization, people are not very much interested in self-realization compared to the amount of energy they put into sense gratification. The amount of energy that's put into sense gratification is overwhelmingly on the scale of activities. It's very imbalanced. 99.99999% sense gratification, maybe a little touch of spark of interest in some spiritual thing. Basically, that's just the way the scale sits currently. That's because the civilization that we're surrounded by is an asura civilization. They've made sense gratification the goal, and it's the pursuit. I don't know if you heard, I was giving the example of Dr. Skinner, how he works. So he's our dentist. How he works so hard for sense gratification. He's got his 4 kids, his nice house, and he's hustling up all week long in that dentist office. Formerly he had an associate. Now he's just him and his assistants. So he's really making a lot of money, and he's working as hard. And you can see he's working really hard. Every second is like, because it's all meant for making money, for sense gratification. He was telling me, I said, how many kids do you have now? Because the famous thing is, like, you go to the auto mechanic, and how much is that repair going to be? Well, it's going to be, let me see, I got a boat payment coming up. Yeah, $4,500. But in Arizona, the joke is, he doesn't have a boat because there's no water, no place to keep the boat, right? But he's got a kid in college in Utah, he was telling me his oldest son is, I think they're Mormons, and so the oldest, Mormons are very big into family life. They even have this philosophy that, when you die, you go to this heaven where all the family members go, and you enjoy your family life there in heaven, barbecue in the backyard, and, Sunday ride in the heavenly car or whatever. That's actually a real concocted idea. But yes, it's I forget the name of the school. I hadn't heard of it before, but he said has the largest enrollment of any university in Utah. No, it's not Brigham Young.
Utah.
I think it's Utah Valley, yeah. Has a bigger enrollment. I've heard of, Utah State and Brigham Young and all these, but this is Utah Valley. Thank you. That's right. He knew. Only he knew. Nobody else knew. I'd never heard of it. So, if a human civilization is just simply centered on sense gratification, then it's asura civilization. And then, especially the further west you go, Prabhupada marks the delineation point as the beginning of the east is the Bay of Bengal, and then from there you go west, it gets more and more asura civilization. So practically, as soon as you get out of India, you're encountering asura civilization. Now we know, and I presented this before, about how the big civilizations in the ancient world, in what modern anthropologists and scholars consider to be the ground zero for human civilization, is the Middle East, particularly in Iraq and Turkey. Did you study some of these things in school? Yeah. Yeah. So that they consider that to be the oldest cities in the world and the beginning of the wheel and agriculture and all these kind of things, and where Proto-Indo-European languages first started, which is a bug of speculation, by the way. like so many are. All the languages come from Sanskrit, actually. The Sanskrit is not one, comes from some Proto-Indo-European language which doesn't exist and nobody ever heard of, nobody ever spoke, and is just a creation of the mind. So as Lord Parashuram was killing the Kshatriyas, because his family members were killed by Kshatriyas, although he was a Brahmana, but he decided to kill all the Kshatriyas in retribution and vengeance. And when the Lord gets mad, he gets real mad. And when he goes on a killing spree, he goes on a big killing spree, killing all the Kshatriyas 21 times, generation after generation. But some of those Kshatriyas escaped the chopping axe of Lord Parashuram, which is a very glorious pastime, actually. And so they fled westward from India, and ended up in places like, Anatolia, and founded the city of Ur in Iraq, and these civilizations began to spring up. But Prabhupada points out that they took to the life of Malechas. Why is that? They gave up the Brahminical culture. There were actually Kshatriyas from Kshatriya families in India. And the traditional Kshatriya families, they followed the Vedic culture very strictly. And they worship the Brahmanas. And they practically live for the benefit of the Brahmanas. And they take all their advice from the Brahmanas, their direction from the Brahmanas, and they execute the business of the Kshatriyas to rule and provide for their citizens and have a good living situation in their kingdoms under the protection of Brahminical culture. And thus they prospered. And that is the way of the Vedic civilization. But these fallen Kshatriyas who were lucky enough to escape from Lord Parashuram, they gave up their Brahminical culture, and thus they became the founders of these dynasties, these empires, particularly in the Middle East, but also Prabhupada mentions in that verse in the second canto of the Bhagavatam that how these different Dhirodatta, Hunandra, Pulinda, Pulakasha, Abhira Shamba, Yavana, Kashadaya, Yenecha Papa, Padapashraya, Shaya, Shajanti Tashmai, Pravabhishnave Namaha. That all these races that are addicted to sinful acts, and they're listed there. You know, the Yavanas, the Malechas, the Kashas, the Huns, you know, Attila the Hun, right? Hungarian Empire. These were all the fallen Kshatriyas. The Greeks, Pulinda, I believe is the word for the Greeks. So Kasha, you know, Kazakhstan, the Kashas race. That's north of India, the Kazakhs. So all these different races, they were founded by the seed of these Kshatriyas from the Vedic culture, but they gave up their Brahminical culture, and then they became fallen, and they became interested only in developing their civilizations for the purpose of sense gratification. So that is not the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture, everything is done for the purpose of elevating the members of the society through Krishna consciousness, through glorification in Vishnu, through worship of the Lord, through offering of sacrifices, through having temples, as well as doing the normal things that Kshatriyas would do, like to build roads, taxes, maintain armies, dig wells, provide, you know, feed people through charity. These are all the things that the Kshatriyas would do. And they were considered to be culpable if they did not conduct their kingdoms in that Vedic way. And at the time that Lord Krishna appeared, the earth was with tears in her eyes, that all these demoniac Kshatriya dynasties are now populating the earth, and they become a burden. The earth was lamenting, they become a burden on me because they're not worshiping you, Lord. So therefore, please come and rectify the situation. And so therefore, Lord Krishna appeared to relieve the world of the burden of these demoniac kings who had giant armies and were a great burden to the earth. That's all in the 10th canto. So, because the Kali Yuga is approaching and the kings are no longer following the Vedic principles, but are simply raising large armies and attacking other kingdoms and causing havoc and chaos in the world. Does that sound like something that's going on nowadays? Yeah. Instead of there are large armies like the United States Army, the Chinese Army, but also there are all these weapons, these technological weapons, they call them smart bombs. But the smart bombs, you got the dummies pressing the button on the smart bombs. So you got the smart bombs, but in the hands of the dummies. What are they going to do? Create chaos. And so there's chaos and discord and strife all over the world. It's all over the world. It's the characteristic of Kali Yuga. So that is Asura. And I was reminded in this regard of a verse. Man, whenever I set this up to press a button and get me the verse, it doesn't work. It works when I'm trying it in the other room. Okay. Let's see, I know how to do it. Every time. I would say Murphy's Law, but like Google's Law. I'll do that. And there it is. The third verse of the Ishopanishad, which states, Asurya nama te loka andani andina dhamasabritaha amste pretya bigachanti yeke chatmahano janaha. Chatmahano, Atma means the soul and Ha means the killer. So this verse says that the killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Pretty scary verse, huh? And this is like the fantastic purport that Prabhupada has given in this verse. Human life is distinguished from animal life due to its heavy responsibilities. Those who are cognizant of these responsibilities and who work in that spirit are called suras, godly persons. And those who are neglectful of these responsibilities, who have no information of them, are called asuras, demons. Throughout the universe, there are only these two types of human being. In the Rig Veda, it is stated that the suras always aim at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and act accordingly. And those who are prajaras generally know this verse. How's it go? No, that's not the verse. That Vishnu Paramam Padam Pasyanti Suryo Chakshursha. That the lotus feet of the Lord are the supreme destination, and those who are godly, they propitiate and worship the lotus feet of the Supreme. Their ways are as illuminated as the path of the sun. Intelligent human beings must always remember that a soul attains a human form after an evolution of millions of years in the cycle of transmigration. The material world is sometimes compared to an ocean, and the human body is compared to a solid boat designed to cross this ocean. So that's what the human body is for. But if one misuses it, one sinks to the bottom of the ocean instead of crossing it. The Vedic scriptures and the acharyas, or saintly teachers, are compared to expert boatmen, and the facilities of the human body are compared to favorable breezes that help the boat ply smoothly to its desired destination. If with all these facilities a human being does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, he must be considered Atmaha, a killer of the soul. Sri Ishopanishad warns in clear terms that the killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. There are swines, dogs, camels, asses, etc., whose economic necessities are just as important to them as ours are to us. But the economic problems of these animals are solved only under nasty and unpleasant conditions. The human being is given, unless you're a dog in the house of a rich man, then just lay around on the couch and fart all day while the master's out working hard at his dentist office. The human being is given all facilities for a comfortable life by the laws of nature, because the human form is more important and valuable than animal life. That's why we have good facility, good arrangements for our living. Why is a man given a better life than that of the swine and other animals? Why is a highly placed government servant given better facilities than those of an ordinary clerk? The answer is that the highly placed officer has to discharge duties of a higher nature. Similarly, the duties human beings have to perform are higher than those of animals, who are always engaged in simply feeding their hungry stomachs. Yet the modern soul-killing civilization has only increased the problems of the hungry stomach. When we approach the polished animal in the form of a modern civilized man and ask him to take interest in self-realization, he will say, that he simply wants to work to satisfy his stomach, and that there is no need of self-realization for a hungry man. The laws of nature are so cruel, however, that despite his denunciation of the need for self-realization and his eagerness to work hard to fill his stomach, he is always threatened by unemployment. Oh, you saw these people on the street. What's happened to them? Just what's said here. We are given this human form of life not to work hard like asses, swine, and dogs, but to obtain the highest perfection of life. If we do not care for self-realization, the laws of nature force us to work very hard, even though we may not want to do so. Human beings, there was a science book I read when I was a teenager, and it was a really fun book about a fellow who was lazy, and he didn't want to work hard. But in order to maintain his position of laziness, he ended up working very hard so that he could have everything he wanted. He went into the military, he rose to a high position, he became very responsible, and he was burdened with all these things, which were the exact things that he didn't want to do, but he was forced to work hard to avoid what he thought was having to work hard. It's a very cleverly written book. I think it was by Harlan Ellison. Human beings in this age have been forced to work hard like the asses and bullocks that pull carts. Some of the regions, asuras, are sent to work are revealed in this mantra, Sri Ishopanishad. If a man fails to discharge his duty as a human being, he is forced to transmigrate to the Asurya planets and take birth in a degraded species of life and work hard in ignorance and darkness. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 6:41 through 43 that a man who enters upon the path of self-realization but does not complete the process, despite having sincerely tried to realize his relationship with God, is given a chance to appear in a family of Suchi or Srimad. Suchi nam Srimatam gehe yogo brashto vidayate. That the unsuccessful yogi can take birth in a Suchi nam, a family of Brahmanas. Suchi nam Srimatam, or Srimatam means a rich Vaishya family. We see that many devotees in our movement come from rich families and complete their self-realization in this life. Srimad indicates a Vaishya, a member of the mercantile community. So the person who fails to achieve self-realization is given a better chance in his next life due to his sincere efforts in this life. And then Krishna says in that section of Bhagavad Gita, but what to speak of one who's a devotee in this life and who's successful? Imagine his destination, much greater than, he can take birth in a family of great devotees, and that's a very rare thing. And Srila Prabhupada speaks of himself in this regard. We were given a chance, he said, to take birth in such a Vaishnava family, where our father encouraged our spiritual life from the beginning of life, gave us deity worship, Ratha Yatra at age 5, had Radha Krishna deities as his childhood play. So that's a very special birth. One can hardly imagine the status of one who has achieved success. But those who do not want to make even an attempt, who want to be covered by illusion, who are too materialistic and too attached to material enjoyment, must enter into the darkest regions of hell, as confirmed throughout the Vedic literature. Bhagavad Gita rebukes such men in the 16th chapter by calling them Atma Sambhavita, meaning that they are considered great only on the strength of deception, and are empowered, get this, are empowered by the votes of the ignorant and by their own material wealth. Ooh. Talk about a hitting the nail on the head in modern civilization, current activities that we see right in front of us. Why? What's going on in the world today? It's Bhagavad Gita come to life. It's proof. Such asuras, devoid of self-realization and knowledge of Ishavasha, the Lord's universal proprietorship, are certain to enter into the darkest regions. And then Prabhupada concludes that as human beings, we are meant not simply for solving economic problems on a tottering platform, but for solving all the problems of the material life into which we've been placed by the laws of nature, by cultivating Krishna consciousness. That is the conclusion of this verse 3 of Ishopanishad. Such a wonderful purport Prabhupada has given. So illuminating. So we'll stop here and ask for questions, comments, realizations.
That was the third verse.
Of Ishopanishad, yeah. Yeah. Asurya Namate Loka. Isn't it relevant? The purport just, and it's so illuminating because we see this happening. He says they're deluded by their own material wealth and the votes of the ignorant. Krishna consciousness calls it again like it is and reveals to us the light of the Bhagavatam. We get the knowledge or light from Bhagavatam, exactly what's going on right in front of us. And it's so amazing to see how the men who are like the dogs, the hogs, the camels, and the asses are doing these things. And we're talking about these rappers, they even have names like that. You know, Snoop Dogg, Sniff Ass, Camel Chew, and Hog's Breath, whatever. They have these names, that designate them as servants of the illusory energy. So vidvara hosta karai, samstuta parasha pashu, dvipada pashu. More dangerous than any animal is the dvipada pashu, the two-legged animal, is the most dangerous animal of all, because he has nuclear weapons. He has his stupid finger on the button of the smart bomb. All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Jesse.
Thank you for such a nice class. Very interesting. I'm just wondering, when did Parashuram last appear, and when
Lord
does
Parshuram?
Parshuram?
Historically,
Yeah.
it was a long time ago. Before the advent of modern civilization, which began, according to modern scholarship, between 10,000 BC and 5,000 BC was the seeds of the modern civilization. But actually, that whole philosophy is bogus.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's things in the archaeological record, buildings and things that go back further than that. Now, if they can make nice mud bricks or miraculously transport giant, multiple ton chunks of stone and arrange them in these buildings that the joints between the stone are so precise that you can't even, slip a micrometer in there. Yeah. Well, how'd they do that? They were primitive cave dwellers in 12,000 BC. No, there's like they could make the stone melt and form it to their own specifications, which we can't do in our modern civilization. So it goes back a long way. It was in a previous age, of course. I'm not sure, actually. I would have to research that, but I believe it was during the Treta Yuga.
Okay. And I think I've read somewhere that he appears at the end of the Kali Yuga as well.
That's not Parshuram, that's Kalki.
Kalki? Okay.
Yeah. And Kalki also has a chopper. He's a chop avatar. That guy's got some mean chops. And he rides a white horse and he kills all the fallen demons at the end of the Kali Yuga. That's Kalki avatar.
Okay.
And Prabhupada says, finish up your self-realization because you don't want to be around for that pastime. Yes, he will appear as the son of a Brahmana named Vishnu Yasha, and he gives the name of the village at the end of the Kali Yuga, which is some 428,000 years from now, approximately. That's a ways off.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you don't want to be caught up in the cycle of birth and death and then, have to witness that or even be a part of that life
Mhm.
where, someone who's 30 years old will be an old man. You would be an ancient, really ancient one at the end of Kali, but you're, over 40, right? Oh my God, 40 years old. That's ancient. That's like so old. Like young people say, like one devotee told me, "You're old as dirt." And of course, he was speaking humorously. Dirt been around since the beginning of the universe, right? So, but that will, a 30-year-old man will be a very old man because people don't they will hardly live to that age. And be lucky if they're not, eaten as babies by their parents. It's just the way it is in the Kali Yuga with the giant cockroaches. There are some who say that the archaeological records of bones of dinosaurs, those are things that are left over from a previous Kali Yuga, in which everything becomes a giant, brontosauruses, tyrannosauruses, and ground shakes when they walk. And the caves and clubs and all that. And the other, the cavemen are from the end of the previous Kali Yuga, not the beginning, not the beginning of this Yuga at all. No, it's way older than that. So some devotees have interpreted it like that. Some learned and clever devotees are able to speculate better than me. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Does that raise a further question?
It does. In your answer, you mentioned like these ancient megalithic structures.
Yeah.
And early on, when I met devotees, somebody told me that in past yugas, like the whole world was like Vedic culture and engaged in deity worship, and that those megaliths are relics of that time. And I'm wondering, is there any shastra that tells, like, is that just like, entire yugas like that were like that, or?
Well, in Treta Yuga, there's great pomp and circumstance in temple worship. In Satya Yuga, though, they really didn't need that. They really have to have that. In Satya Yuga, people were just meditating. They didn't even have to plow the land. The land was just producing, yielding all kinds of produce, fruits, vegetables, things are so full of nutrition. You get one mango, that mango has like the potency of, lifetimes of a mango nowadays. It's so potent and so powerful and so purifying. And that's all one would need. And the mango would be just like, it would be like a juice covered by a thin skin. You just pick it up. You didn't have to pick it off the tree. They're just available. So, and produce was just abundantly everywhere. People hardly had to work. So this whole idea of civilization began with, the growing of wheat and the plowing of the field. And that's a sign of the degradation of civilization. Or when men began writing was invented. Writing was invented because people were too stupid to remember anything. Whereas in the previous ages, hear it once, remember it, you got it. And the Shastra was transmitted orally from spiritual master to disciple. And there were no mistakes. It was done perfectly. Mm-hmm. But when people couldn't do that anymore, we got to write stuff down now. Oh, man has become civilized. Now we invented writing. You invented writing because you're stupid. Because you can't think properly. Your brain is not purified. And your intelligence is not razor sharp like the sages of yore, whose brains were razor sharp. They weren't fools at all. And they were focused on self-realization. So there are different paradigms. But we're so conditioned by this Judeo-Christian paradigm of the world and of the linear movement of time, that actually the movement of time is cyclical. And modern physics doesn't understand that at all. They think that's, what do they call that? Mythology. Mm-hmm. What is actual knowledge they consider to be mythology. And what is foolishness, they consider that to be actual knowledge. That's right out of the Bhagavad Gita. You know, what is irreligion, they think, oh, that's religion. Now we have eliminated God. And God is just for this mythology, weak people who are dependent and think they have to, you know, bow down to some mountain or a thunderbolt or something. With that irreligion, they think, oh, that's religion. And what's real religion? Chanting of the holy names, worshiping the deity, offering things, performing sacrifice, doing austerities, giving in charity. They think, oh, that's irreligion. The real religion, they think, oh, that's irreligion. We see this in our preaching, that we are performing the actual religion, and then there's all these people who claim to be religious, and they say it's the mark of the beast, and they have all these concoctions, these things. What was that one time we were at the Air and Space Museum, where we used to preach at the Krishna Fest thing, you know, First Amendment, government property, big Harinam, books. And one boy came up and he said, I rebuke thee. I rebuke thee, Satan. And I said, buddy, you're not rebuking anybody. I said, you're just a fool who doesn't even know his own religion and doesn't follow anything. And there was all these high school kids gathered around the table. And you know, everybody hates these kind of people that I rebuke thee in the name of Jesus. And they all said, yeah, you're not a real Christian. You don't follow. And they all took him off and they're all arguing with him and everything. But I told you, you weren't rebuking anybody. You're getting rebuked by being a fool. And he clearly was just a sense gratifier who was, you know, puffed up guy, young guy. I rebuke thee, as if he were some, you know, great biblical empowered personality or something like that. So these things are going on. All right, so we'll stop here. And I tried to end early, but that's all right. Best laid plans. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. I tried to end early, but you got me going.